Welcome to The Manly Catholic. In this podcast, we will inspire, challenge, and equip all men to become the men they were created to be. Join us as we journey together to become the best versions of ourselves and strive to change our communities one man at a time. Welcome back, brothers, to another episode of The Manly Catholic, and this is episode 151. So this episode kicks off a compelling two-part series featuring Dave Phelps, who is the president of Harmel Academy of the Trades. And I know for those of you who have listened for a while, Father Dom has a little talking point that he comes in and says, Harmel Academy is something that Father Dom is extremely passionate about. And after talking to Dave, it is something that I think is making quite a bit of waves, especially in the Catholic world here in Grand Rapids, but they were featured on an article in the National Catholic Register as well. So if you've ever wondered, how does work, faith, fatherhood intertwine, or if you've ever questioned the dignity of manual labor, why is it important, then this episode is for you. So did you know, it's a little fun fact, that Leon Harmel, who's a namesake of Harmel Academy, actually inspired Pope Leo XIII's landmark encyclical, Rerum Novarum. That's the kind of deep history and purpose behind his transformative Catholic trade school. Dave shares his incredible journey from growing up in a machinist family to helping build a school that equips men for the trades while forming them as leaders and disciples of Christ. So in this episode, part one, you'll learn the integration of faith and work, how Harmel Academy trains men not just for the trades, but for sanctity, showing how the Catholic spirituality of work transforms lives. Also learn how fatherhood and the importance in its role as leadership. So he shares how fatherhood and leadership extend into the workplace and the community, offering a blueprint for how men can lead with love and integrity. And finally, learn the untold story of Leon Harmel, dive into the life of the man whose revolutionary approach to work-life integration inspired the Church's social teachings, obviously inspired an incredible school, which is making so many great waves, like I said, in the Catholic world. So I hope you enjoy a part one. Part two, we are expecting to release next week as well. So stay tuned and enjoy this episode. Again, this is episode 151 with Dave Phelps, president of Harmel Academy of the Trades. Thank you so much for listening, and God bless. Hello all, welcome to another episode of The Manly Catholic. This is James, your host, and with me I have Father Dom. Father Dom, how are you doing?
Doing good so far.
Wonderful. And where are we tonight?
We are at Harmel Academy of the Trades.
And with that, we have the president of Harmel, Mr. Dave Phelps. Dave, welcome to the Manly Catholic Podcast.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. Thanks for letting us have Father Dom here.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
The man of many lives.
Yes, it is. Yes.
How does he have time for all this? But we don't know.
I don't sleep.
Don't sleep?
Sleep is overrated, right?
It is. Sleep when you're dead.
Is that okay? Well, at least it's on the schedule.
He scheduled it in.
Good.
Way back way down there.
Good.
Well, we're going to be talking about, obviously, Harmel. We're going to be talking about work, the dignity of work, many things tonight, which I'm very excited about. But before we do that, Father Dom, can you kick us off with prayer?
Absolutely. In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. Pater noster, qui es in caeli, sanctificetur nomen tuum, adveniat regnum tuum, fiat voluntas tua, sicut in cielo et in terra. Panem nostrum, quotidianum da nobis hodie, et dimitti nobis debita nostra, sicut et nos debitibus debitoribus nostris, and ne nos inducas in tentationem, sed liber nos a malo. Amen. In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Father Dom.
That's as much. We're not going to do the whole thing in Latin, though, right? Because that's all I got.
That's all you got.
Maybe throw
just
an
the
ave
second
in
part. Just the second part of the pater. That's okay. No, that's it. That's it. Unless you want to go into some, hymnatic or chanting tome of Gregory the Great or something.
We could do the whole podcast like this. Everything we say.
We'd have to get the students up here to do that because
We
we got
could.
a couple guys who can chant. I'll
Get
tell you
an
that
angelic
much.
choir in the background.
The
They can
angelic
echo what we
choir,
say.
yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that. Jeff, maybe we can set that up for next time.
Turn on one of the machines. That'll be our tone.
Yes.
And then just-
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, Dave, so our audience can get to know you a little bit better.
Yeah.
If you could be the patron saint of anything, What would it be
Yeah.
and why?
Okay, so I thought for many days on this.
I know you did.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
If I could be the patron saint of anything, I don't know if there's a patron saint of hockey, and if there
all right.
not one, then I'd like to apply for that job. So I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, is there like a saint in heaven that determines the patron saints of everything?
I don't know. Maybe it's one of the archangels.
Or is it like a lawyer? Like
Probably.
dishing
It could
out
be.
jobs?
It could be Thomas More.
Thomas
That's what I was thinking,
More.
Thomas
Okay.
More.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that or
I think it would be Catherine of Siena. She seemed like Saint Catherine of Siena.
who's the one who's doling out, or is it the patron saint of hockey?
The
Right? It probably.
Well, you never
she's
know.
Kind of a
I would-
bruiser, right?
She is.
She's a bruiser.
She
Yeah,
told
she will check you into the boards.
She told the Pope
It doesn't
to go
matter
back
if you're
to Rome,
Oh yeah,
right?
the
that was
popes
her.
and
Okay.
the Pope in Avion and the Avion papacy.
Yeah.
Get back to Rome.
Yeah.
Saint Sebastian, right? Athlete.
Is there
Really?
Saint, well, he's
the
the saint.
All right.
Yeah. I don't know. You might have to combine that with a patron saint of
How would
ice
Saint
and
Sebastian
snow.
be
Ooh.
the patron saint of hockey? Why
That's a very good
Well, he's an
question.
athlete. He's a
Yeah.
patron
But is
saint of
Yeah, but you don't
athletes.
you don't just claim all the sports.
No, it has to be hockey. There has.
There's no saint just for hockey, just like there's no specific saint for football or soccer. Saint Sebastian is a saint.
There we go. It's probably what's
Fits
the
the bill.
was it
I like
what's,
that.
what's the fella from Montreal, the St. Joseph's Oratory?
Claude Lemieux?
That fuck. No, the blessed.
Patrick Waugh?
Yeah, he was
Patrick
no
Waugh?
he was no saint. They neither were.
Oh, he wasn't.
No, they were no saints. No.
Saint from he was a saint from Montreal.
Yeah, or he's a blessed, and he started St. Joseph's Oratory. Andre Bisset, right?
Oh, yes.
Would have to be someone from
Probably someone Canadian.
from the Canadians.
I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Yeah,
All right.
but if he's busy,
Well, I'm trying to
then-
imagine your prayer card. Like, would it be goalie gear and?
No, I'm not. I'm
What-
not crazy, Father. No.
You're not crazy.
No, I'm not crazy. No, my boy's a goalie though. I hope he doesn't hear me say that. But
I was goalie too.
were you?
Yeah.
Oh,
Were
that's
you
right,
crazy
you
too?
were.
Yeah. My brother was a goalie, and my boy's a goalie. My
Okay.
younger boy's a goalie.
Okay.
But yeah, you guys are crazy, man.
No, it was even crazier. I'm blind in one eye.
Why? How'd
So
you
Oh my goodness.
yeah, so
that's
if you
right.
wanted to score, just shoot on my left side, and I was hopeless.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's why I didn't go past like 8th grade because once you get in like high school, college, they figure that out pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Your weakness?
He doesn't
they
have
find
one.
you a weakness?
Yeah.
He only has one eye.
Yeah.
Really?
Wow. Yeah.
Well, that's cool. All right, the patron saint
Of hockey.
of hockey.
I love it.
Did you ever play? So I'm on the board of the Griffin's Youth Foundation, and about 3 years ago or something, we had an event where we hosted the U.S. blind hockey. Team.
Oh.
Have you ever
What?
come across those guys?
Never heard of
Oh
that.
my goodness,
That's
you think
amazing.
hockey's awesome?
That doesn't make any sense.
I know, it's great.
Is it a ball with bells inside of it?
So it's like a metal. It's a little larger puck. And it's hollow, and it's steel or aluminum with like ball bearings inside.
Oh, so you can hear it.
So you can hear it. And we had a player, a kid, come up through our ranks from the time he was little, and he started playing when he was about 5 or 6, and then he lost his sight.
Oh,
and he
my
wanted to play
goodness.
in hockey. So we got one of these, and we arranged it. He was on my team several years, and he would, whenever he was on the ice, the game flipped. Okay, we're playing with that puck now. And so it was great. Like all these kids would play for whatever his shift was. It would be,
That's
they'd play
amazing.
blind. But then we had the U.S. team come in. The captain of the team in those days is, I think, from up the road in Muskegon, and brought all of these players of all these ages, but then brought the U.S. team. And these guys it's brutal. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's hockey, but it's blind hockey, and they're skating, and they're moving, and they're hitting.
Are they?
And it was
Aggressive?
Oh my! It's like unbelievable. And the other thing too is one of the changes is that you can go down, and you can play the puck like with both ends of your stick, like a paddle. You know?
Oh, okay.
And so whenever they'd get close, or with like a face-off, for example, it was like American Gladiators because they're got both
Oh,
sides of their
yeah.
stick, and they are swinging, and they don't care who they hit. So
And they're on
Do you-
skates.
and they're on skates, yeah.
Do you think though, in a way,
I like that.
that's a bit of an advantage because like if you have vision, you might slow down a little bit. But these guys are going full force
They're
because it's
going
almost
full.
like they lost that sight, and so like, oh yeah, we're just going all
So their
out.
hearing is heightened, correct? I mean,
Yeah,
isn't that how
100%.
it works? If-
Yeah, I've never been
I mean,
blind, so
I don't know. My wife says my
I blink a lot.
my hearing has not improved. So
yeah, I do blink. a
Cover
lot.
your eyes and let me know if you can hear me whisper.
Yeah.
Wow, Wow.
Anyway, yeah. So
That's awesome.
Yeah, patron saint.
I want to see your prayer card. You have to make your prayer card. I want to know the prayer in the back. I want to know the picture.
Yeah, I don't know what that would be.
Well, you're asking a lot. We've never asked that of our guests
No,
before.
I guess maybe we should.
What's on the prayer card?
Yeah, if you're gonna make a
To
prayer
be on the
card,
podcast next time, you have to
would
submit
the-
a prayer.
Well, I'll tell you exactly what would be on the prayer card.
That's how holy
That's
we
a
are.
challenge.
That's how
That's
holy
make
we
your
are
prayer
around
card.
here.
I'll
We
tell you
don't we don't mess around.
Here's
We don't mess around.
I got it. Because if anyone's ever seen me play hockey, the prayer this would be fitting, and they would know. Forgive him, Father. He knows not what he's doing. Right. So. Yeah.
We don't want him. We don't want him on our team.
Yeah, that's right.
We're glad he's in heaven.
We're glad he's in heaven. That's right.
Oh,
Yeah.
fun stuff. Fun stuff.
All right. Well, Dave, why don't you tell our audience a little bit about your background? I mean, obviously, like I said, you introduced you president of Harmel Academy, which I obviously want to talk about. But give our a little bit of background about yourself. We'll get into that. Obviously, a huge hockey fan.
Sure.
Go Ducks.
Yeah. Well, I can't quite agree with you there, but So I'm a lifelong Michigander, and I grew up north of here a couple hours. The farm I grew up on, it was not a working farm by the time I came around, but so my great great grandfather settled that farm, and
First generation.
So he came from Scotland, and then my great grandmother was born on the way, and then my grandmother was born in that house, and my father was born in that house. In fact, my father, God rest him, who passed last year, he died about 20 feet from where he was born.
Oh my gosh!
Remarkable.
Wow,
that's amazing.
So I grew up there. So my name is Phelps, but the family's name was McDougall. It was a Scottish family, so I grew up there. My father was a machinist. He had a company in the Detroit area for. I'm the 8th of 9, so I was, I came along a lot later. But had a machine shop down in Clarkson, Michigan, and then sold that, and moved back up north, started another company and another shop up there, and it's a lot it looked like this, I guess. And so I worked for him growing up as a kid. Swept a lot of floors and cleaned a lot of toilets and moved a lot of chips I'm very quick to say that of all my 5 brothers and I inherited the least amount of my dad's mechanical genius. Everyone else, it went to all the brothers first.
Really?
Yeah. So I wasn't very good at it. The other way I put it is my brothers blew things up on purpose. And I did it on accident. So
we've all been there once in a while.
But you reached the same goal, same end.
Yeah, sort of.
Destruction.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know if I told you the story or not, Father. When my dad passed, we're just obviously go through a lot of stuff. My dad was a big motorcyclist, and until I got married, I rode myself, and but we're sort of going through, and my dad had bikes everywhere. He had probably 15 or 20 motorcycles.
Oh wow.
Of all sorts and all.
Really?
Yeah. And we were up there, and something had happened that spring with the guy. I was so frustrated with the guys here at Harmel about something, because they're 18 and dumb or something. And then, but it was good because I walked into the barn, and in the corner of the barn was this old Honda. It's my dad's bike that he let me ride when I was in school. It doesn't run anymore. It doesn't matter why. And it blew up, and it blew up. All right. So, come to find out, you can blow them up.
He blew it up.
And I remember,
good man.
And I thought to myself, maybe I'll, you never scrapped it. It was just sitting there in the barn all these years. Maybe one of these days I'll just pull it down and put it on the wall in the shop here, just as a reminder to myself that you can be 18 and stupid and do stupid things. And my father was very patient with me, so maybe I need to do that with other young men. So
where is that bike?
I think my brother-in-law finally just scrapped it. Like he did a good job of cleaning all these up, and I think that's one that there were a handful that were kind of in disrepair, we'll say. So there were a couple of dirt bikes and a couple of road bikes, but yeah, he's got a. Not to go off on this, but I was just telling something. one of the other bikes that was up there was this. When I was 12, my dad bought me this motorcycle like as a fixer-upper, and like I wasn't interested at the time, you know. And he was like, "Hey, if you want, you can fix this bike." I wasn't that interested, and it sat there for the last 35 years. And right after he passed, there's this channel on YouTube about bikes that I'll watch and pine for my younger days, and they were doing this episode on strange motors, and they hosted this in a motorcycle museum, and they're like, well, the first bike we've got is this very, very strange, sort of rare bike, and they showed this bike, and I'm like, hey, that's my bike.
No.
And wow, really? I didn't know this, and I'm sure my father knew this. He's like, no, this is actually kind of a strange motorcycle. This would be a real kind of showpiece. I didn't even pay attention to it, so I cleaned it up this summer and started researching parts, and I think we'll try to get it.
What kind of bike is that?
So there was this Austrian company called Puch, Puch, and they're still around now. They make like mopeds or something like this.
Okay.
And but after the Second World War, they sold tons of these bikes in Europe because they were very gas efficient. And so they tried to sell them in the U.S. under, remember the Sears catalog?
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So Sears contracted with them to make a Sears version of this bike that you could buy in a catalog. And it just didn't go anywhere, because,
From Austria or Australia?
Austria. And it's called a Twingle, which is a terrible name for the motor.
Puch and Twingle? Like what?
Right? Well, I can't imagine why it didn't sell in America, land of dudes.
Sounds like something out of like
Right?
Hasbro, like toys or something you find.
Well, hey, I got you this Puch. I'm like, yeah,
Sounds pretty manly to me.
sounds pretty manly.
Hell's Angels were riding Puchs.
Yeah, and right. But the engine is it's both a single cylinder and a dual cylinder motor. They're like connected, believe it or not. So it's two pistons on one that connects in one point in the shaft, and
Wow.
and they're sort of offset a little bit. And
Sure.
what happens is the exhaust from one will push over into the next one and then burn again. So they're super
efficient.
and they sound like boat motors, right? But they're like these little bulletproof little machines, and they were huge in Europe, and they were not here.
That's cool.
So anyway, so yeah.
That's what this is the kind of stuff we talk about at the Academy. This
That's
stuff.
awesome.
This
I
stuff.
love that.
This cool stuff. This
Yeah,
cool stuff.
yeah,
So you were born and raised up north.
yeah. Yep.
Were you raised
I was
Catholic?
actually-
or?
I was born. No, I was
Is
not.
this-
No, I was
okay.
born in Muskegon.
Muskegon.
That's my mom. My mom's
Okay.
family's from Muskegon, and so I was born in Muskegon, but raised up north. My folks were, Christian people and faithful in their way, but we weren't Catholic or anything like that. Catholics were suspect, I suppose. I remember once my dad telling me that, well, we don't wear green on St. Patrick's Day. I'm like, well, why? He says, well, we're Protestants. I'm like, well, okay. So I guess that's a thing,
Wait, what was the reason behind that? I've never heard that, actually.
Protestants,
It's a Catholic
Dutch,
thing,
right?
and they just stay away
it's
from
the House of Orange, right? The Reformed in the Netherlands or whatever. I think it's something to do with that. I don't know. I don't think necessarily he knew either, except that, where he grew up, there weren't a lot of Catholics around, and
The Catholics wore green on St.
Yeah, they're
Patrick's Day,
kinda
so we don't do
suspicious,
that.
We do the opposite.
Yeah.
So no, that
Interesting.
wasn't part of the upbringing. So that came about later in college, but and my dad was fine with it. My mom was not, but
With you converting?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but she's Catholic now, so I mean.
Hey, all right. How about your dad?
Amen.
Was he Catholic when he-
not before he passed,
Okay.
but he got things sorted with our Lord, though.
Amen.
But,
Wonderful.
yeah.
So what was your turning point then? What kind of
For conversion?
introduced you to the faith? And
Well, I was kind of a pious kid, I suppose, and we had like good youth groups in the town where I grew up in, that sort of thing, and but I wasn't really raised in a particular church. My parents would take me to church every once in a while, but I was kind of a pious kid, and so I joined this youth group and went with my pals to this Baptist church, and it was good, and youth leaders were good and all that. But I remember even as a kid, and especially in high school, you would get pretty active in the youth groups and that sort of thing. And I went to this Baptist church, and then one block over, like you could see it when you walked out of our church, like there's a Methodist church. And I didn't know anything about denominations or confessions or anything like that. I thought, man, that's weird. Like they go to church over there and we go to church over here. And our youth group and their youth group don't really do anything. But we're all Christians, right? And, and as far as I understood about what the gospel was and what it meant to be a Christian, it just did not compute. And so when I went to college, I sort of felt that I might now describe it as a rootlessness, And I said, well, I guess I suppose it's probably important to be a part of a church, like a member of a church. I'd never been a member of a church, and
where'd you go to school?
At Hope College over.
Oh, you went to Hope. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So they made me wear a blonde wig and everything to go there, and in those days, this is in the mid '90s. Hope was going through this. You could only call it a revival, man. I mean, it was unbelievable, and that's part of what drew me there. Hope for many decades. Hope's a reformed school, but for many decades it had been completely off track on its mission and all but secular, just party school.
Mm-hmm.
But then in the '90s, some of the board members are like, man, we gotta do something about this. And one of the things they did is they created a new position. Up until that point, the chaplain had been a part of the theology department. And they're like, well, we're not going to do that anymore. And they created this new position called Dean of the Chapel. He reports directly to the president. And they hired this man named Ben Patterson. And just full disclosure, my oldest son's middle name is Patterson, so you'll get a sense of how I feel about the guy.
Oh, wow.
And he was this Presbyterian minister, and just, he is a man among men, a lion. And he was not interested in playing any games. Like, this is about our Lord. And within a year, maybe 10 or 15 students that would attend chapel services to 1,400.
Oh my gosh!
Within
one
a year?
It was unbelievable.
God bless him.
Okay.
Jeez Louise.
Standing room only. And so I came, I think it would have been the second year of that, right? So this is already up and running. And it's unbelievable. And so it was, in fact, Ben just published his memoirs earlier this year about it, because depending on who you ask, I mean, it was a turbulent time. It was, I'll tell you, it really put a bad taste in my mouth for many, many, many years. I did not return to that school, simply because I was involved with the chaplain team, and I was in Ben's Bible study, and knew a number of the chaplains personally and things like this. I kind of got a little bit of a behind the scenes look at the fight that happens, when an institution is, kind of called back to its roots, and it can be ugly.
Mm-hmm.
And so anyway, it was the best of times and the worst of times. But at the time, I knew that I set a goal for myself when I went to school, which was, by the time I graduate, I should probably be a member of the church. But I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know anything about really denominations or confessions or anything like this. So I said, well, okay, I'm gonna learn. I'm gonna learn what the difference is between all these, right? And I guess I'll pick the one that I think is best for me. And so I said, okay, and I said, okay, well, boy, there's a lot of them. Okay, so where do you start? I thought, well, I'll start broad and I'll go narrow. So the biggest difference I could think of was, okay, there's Catholic, Protestant. That's kind of the biggest difference. I'll start there. And so I just started reading. And what in the world, no one told me, well, this is, what? No, what? And just, it blew my mind.
Been there.
Yeah.
And,
For sure.
Been there.
And it was a bookstore in Wheaton, Illinois, at Wheaton College of all places. So very, the evangelical flagship, right? I was in a bookstore there, and there was a book there by this guy. I think his name was David Curry or something like that. And it was a conversion story, right? And it was basically, hey, this is just an overview. Like, here are the big differences, and here's where the Protestants are, and then there's where the Catholics are. And I'm reading this, and I'm like, this is blowing my mind. Like, I had no idea about any of this. And it seemed to make sense, but it was, I suppose it was exciting, but it was also very foreign. And even later on, it was even after my conversion, where even, the first, I don't know, year or two of being Catholic, like even the whole Mary thing was still kind of like, because I mean, that is so sort of baked in you as a Protestant, like the things you know about Catholics, or the idolatry,
misconceptions and stereotypes.
Yeah, right. And so it's just so like, okay, like, and with that issue itself, I basically just came down, okay, well, I trust the rest of it, I trust the authority, all of that. So I'm going to choose to say, yep, that's the thing. But man, that's not for me. You know? But yeah, so I just started reading. And I thought, at one point I thought I might be a pastor or something like that. And but when I found myself, like with friends, starting to explain and defend things.
When you said you started reading, was it philosophy, theology, church history?
Yeah, just
spirituality?
Yeah.
Just anything.
Mysticism?
Yeah, when I went,
saints?
No, not a ton of saints. No. So I
early church fathers?
Yeah. Like Polycarp and Irenaeus.
Oh my goodness, Ignatius and
Ignatius and and like the Didache was like, it blew my mind. Like, what is this?
Saint Justin Martyr,
yeah, Saint Justin Martyr.
Beautiful writings.
And this is all like 1st, 2nd century stuff, right?
Oh yeah,
What?
Yeah.
So yeah, and the other thing is that I don't I don't exactly like people, so I don't like spending time with them and going out and doing things.
So we're doing great.
Yeah, and
I hope he likes us right now.
Yeah, well, so it was also a good excuse to just sort of I'd rather be with a book or something like this. And it was
I can relate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then after a while, it was I suppose intellectual to start. It just made sense. And I'll tell you, at one point, I thought, man, at one point I told my roommate, I said, I might be Catholic.
I think I'm Catholic.
No. I said I could maybe like 15, 20 years. I could see that. Oh my, and I remember I went to Ben, and I suppose I was kind of maybe thinking he'd kind of help me work through it.
Was this still at? Where was this at?
I'm still at Hope.
You're still at Hope.
Okay.
Okay.
There. So I went to him, and he's a Presbyterian chaplain at this Reformed school, and I said, hey, like, here's what's going on, and here's what I've been reading, and I'm thinking, I said, I think I might want to become Catholic. And I'm kind of like, so like, help me out here, bro.
Did he smack you? Did he try and smack some sense into you?
And he said, well, I think you should do it.
Really?
That's what I said. Yeah. And he's like, well, you praying about it? I'm like, yeah. He's like, well, you think that's where our Lord is taking you? I'm like, maybe. He says, well, man, Dave, all I know is like, you just go where the Lord leads. And if that's where he's leading you, you follow him.
Were you going to Mass, at least checking it out? Were you looking at Catholic liturgy?
Yeah, it was. What was interesting is,
because you're in Hope. I'm trying to think of like,
okay, here's
you had St. Patrick's, you had...
here's what's interesting is things are different now. So much different now, man.
It's mostly Catholic, isn't it?
Oh my goodness.
Now
well,
it
at the
is.
time, the whole philosophy department was Catholic. Like theology department, good luck. But the philosophy department, they were all
When you were
Catholics
there?
when I was there, right? And they're all just good, solid Catholic philosophy professors. Okay. And one of them, his name was Nick Paravich. He was just a lovely, kind of quirky guy, and I liked philosophy, and I took 2 or 3 of his classes, and oh, you're Catholic, and he and his wife would take me to mass, and it was just, oh, cool, man, great, thank you. But so it was very intellectual, but the thing that sort of pushed it over the edge was when I was a junior in November. My younger brother was in a terrible car crash, and he was paralyzed, and a couple boys were killed. And he had to go out west, so my father and mother and him went out to this hospital out in Colorado for several months. I sort of paused school for a few months. I moved home. My older brother moved home. We sort of worked in the shop, and my brother kind of ran things, and I just kind of, we need laborers, so I work in the shop. And there was a vigil praying for the 2 boys that had died, and then my brother. And I think one or maybe both of the boys, I think, were Catholic, maybe. And so it was at the Catholic parish. So my brother and I are like, well, someone from our family should probably go, and I've kind of been sniffing around Catholic stuff, so I'll go. And so the priest gave this just little talk, and he said something along the lines of that Christ did not. He said Christ did not come into the world to take suffering away. He came to make it salvific.
First time hearing redemptive suffering.
Yeah.
Never had I heard anything like that. And I mean, my brother at that time was like, is he going to make it? And he's paralyzed and quadriplegic, and it's awful. It was awful. And it was the first time I ever heard what is, like how could I be, 21 years old and a sort of a practicing Christian, I suppose, for most of my life, and never hear that. Right? Like, never hear about, like, the cross. You hear about the cross, right? I mean, clearly. It's not like you didn't know about,
It's in Scripture.
Yeah. You know about the cross. You know about, what the cross is. But, for a kid, me growing up, was like, here's, Christ pays the price for our sins and this sort of thing. And, like, you get your sins washed away and all of that.
Yeah.
All right. But redemptive suffering, like, what is that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, man, that blew my mind. And afterwards, I went next door to the parish rectory, and I knocked on the door, and I said, I think I'd like to become Catholic. And the priest said, come on in. He says, you want a drink? And I'm a Baptist kid. I'm like, too fast.
What do you offer? Do you remember? Oh, yeah, let's do this.
So,
Everclear.
I did not
Let's cleanse that
We're
system.
gonna we're gonna need some heavy stuff here, guys.
So that was really the sort of thing that so I kind of the study had sort of prepped for it, but that was that definitely, man, that'll shove you in the water.
Yeah.
Jeez.
So yeah.
And then you became Catholic.
Yep.
That's amazing.
Yep. And like I said, my father was, he's pretty chill. My mother was not cool with this, and we had old friends that were former Catholics that they kind of sicked on me, and boy, we went rounds and rounds and rounds, and
They didn't pull a St. Thomas Aquinas with you, did they?
well, no,
Capture you, put you in a tower, and then throw a prostitute in the room.
Man, like, when I came into the church this has been 99, the Easter Vigil in 99. My best pal, who was Catholic, and that was one of the things too. Is like when I was starting to look around, I'm like, well, like I know these people, they're Catholic, and like they're actually these really holy people. That that doesn't compute. But anyway, he was my confirmation sponsor. He was smiling his face off, and my mom, God bless her, came, and she sat to my right, and she just wept through the whole thing. And then 20 years later, she came into the church. So
Praise be to God.
So
Awesome.
yeah, it's pretty cool.
The seed was planted.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much for listening to the episode, and I just want to take a really quick break to thank one of our sponsors, which is Mystic Monk Coffee. Coffee and prayer. It's the perfect blend. Mystic Monk Coffee isn't just another cup of coffee. It's handcrafted by the Carmelite monks of Wyoming, roasted with care and infused with prayer. Whether you are starting your morning or fueling your day, Mystic Monk Coffee offers rich, bold flavors that are as divine as their mission. By choosing Mystic Monk, you're not only enjoying exceptional coffee, you're supporting a community of monks dedicated to prayer and the church. It is coffee with a cause. And here's the best part. As a supporter of the Mainly Catholic Podcast, if you join our Buy Me a Coffee page at the $20 or more a month level, we'll send you a bag of Mystic Monk coffee for free. And yes, we will even pay for the shipping. So what are you waiting for? Visit mysticmonkcoffee.com today and experience the brew that's fueling faith and flavor. Again, that's mysticmonkcoffee.com. It's coffee made for your soul. Now, thank you for listening, and let's dive back into that episode.
So then what brought you into Grand Rapids then?
So I went to school at Hope.
What did you study at Hope?
I studied literature and Latin.
Oh.
So I was really looking to be employable. And then I went to grad school, did my master's at Central, also in literature, so very hip.
Did you want to be a teacher?
And,
was that the goal?
Yeah,
Professor?
it was. And in fact, I had been accepted to a PhD program at Marquette, and that was the plan.
Oh, wow.
And so I got married, and we're gonna move to Milwaukee, and we were married for maybe, I don't know, maybe 5 months or something like that, and we were getting ready to make this move out to Marquette. I could do my PhD out there. And as newlyweds, our apartment building burned down. We lost everything. Oh, gosh. Except our dog. We saved our dog. Right?
Gotta save the dog.
Okay. And our PJs. Okay.
Ooh, yeah. You guys have your priorities straight.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you guys got any pull in the podcast world with Conan O'Brien, but I've been thinking about reaching out to her because my wife is, not a fan. I'm a huge fan. And I worked the late shift, and I'd come home, and my routine was every night I'd come home and be like 12:30. I'd get home, Conan O'Brien show comes on, I pour a bowl of cereal, I watch Conan O'Brien before I go to bed. And it's because I was up watching Conan O'Brien that we're alive to this day. And so that was like the weekend before we were going out there to look for an apartment. And that was a real quiet drive out there. And a quiet drive back, and we just sort of discerned on that car ride that, I'm not sure if this is the, another 4 years of school, and then who knows when and where you're going to get tenure, and we'd like to have children, and I'd like to stay, close to Michigan, but you never know if that's going to be a thing, and we just said, it's not for us. So
was your wife from Michigan?
Yeah, she grew up over in the Lansing area. Okay. And
you guys met at Hope?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Yep. We went to school together. And then, so anyway, long story short, I ended up back in Grand Rapids in West Michigan. I got a job. A friend of mine introduced me to some folks at a think tank here in town. And
is that Sirico?
Yeah.
Father Sirico?
Yep.
Oh, nice.
And so I got a job that brought us to Grand Rapids, and it's like getting paid to go to grad school. And so that's what's brought us here.
Is that when you were at Sacred Heart?
Yeah. So we moved into that neighborhood. We used to live over there on the west side when we moved here, and and it was. I'll tell you, it was. I didn't know anything in those. At that point, gosh, I would have been Catholic for 3 years or something at that point, 4 years, and I didn't know anything about. Here's what I knew. I hope this is a safe place. Can I admit to something here?
Very safe place.
I used to play in worship bands.
Dude.
Roy Shaw.
We just interviewed Roy Shaw a couple days ago, and he was a convert to Catholicism. His wife was Catholic before they got married. Your wife was Catholic before you got married. No, she converted too?
That's how we met, because when she came to school, she had just converted. And someone says, I know someone who did that.
Oh, awesome.
So,
but Roy, Coach Roy, You know him.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. He was in a Christian rock band too.
Wow.
Wait, did
really?
you say Christian rock band or just you?
Or just a rock band.
Both. Yeah.
So the third guy we interview, we have to make sure that he was in a Christian. We got to keep.
We got to get a band going.
No, let's not.
gotta get a band.
No,
Okay,
let's
all right,
not.
fine.
That's right.
Oh, man. Yeah. No.
That is hilarious. What was the name of your band?
No, it doesn't matter.
Come on, no, I want to know, Dave.
No.
Come what the Nantucket?
There were bands.
What?
There were bands. There were worship bands. How did we get on this topic? Worship bands. What?
You said you were asking if this was a safe space.
So here's why.
And we can't stop at that.
And then even after I sort of came in, I would like a couple of priests I knew would, hey, why don't you play at mass? And I didn't know any different. So like, I got a guitar and so here's the hymnal. Okay, yeah. And then it's like all these tunes, and I'm playing these tunes. Wow, man. Like, okay, like I guess. And there was this.
I'm sorry,
joint.
I just.
Oh my goodness! Right,
Post Vatican II, man.
I tell you what.
I'm having some.
I won't tell you which hymnal it was, but I'll say it started with G and it rhymed with gather. Okay. And so
I want to hear you rock out "All Are Welcome."
Oh.
What does it come dance through the? What is it? Dance through the forest,
there was
play in the
lots
fields.
of dancing.
I want to hear that one.
There was frolicking, and
and
there was becoming the church and being who you be or something. And,
Oh my gosh.
did you have long hair?
But yeah, leather pants and everything, man.
Oh,
Yes.
I want to go to that church.
Now listen, here's the thing though, is I actually went to Hope to study music. That's why I went.
I thought it was literature.
What's that?
I thought it was literature.
Well, I ended up majoring in literature, but I went to study music.
Oh, okay.
And
all right.
So that was the original hope, was to sort of hit the road. And
Yes.
You are a man of many talents.
Right.
Many
Seriously,
secrets.
my gosh.
I've been working with you for 5 years.
no one needs to know this. But the point is that
Well, there's going to be some people who will know this.
When I came to church, like, I'm drawn to this beauty.
Amen.
And I felt like I was kind of walking to the church, and all these other people were walking like toward me, going out, and they're going toward like the campy dances, and I'm like, "Where are you guys going?" Like, I'm coming from there, man, and I'm like, "Listen, it's all right, but it's like that way." And so when we, I will now describe it to people is, listen, I'm not like an Uber traddy or anything like that, but the way I describe it is, this is me. I have very strong aesthetic allergies. And there are some churches where I can't pray. It's too distracting.
Yeah.
Because it's, and here's something, I don't know who listens to this. And, I have tremendous respect for the church and for our bishops and our priests and this sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And they got to do what they got to do.
Yeah.
And man, I don't envy having to play that pastoral role. But here's something I wish, even in those days, I wish there was more of a understanding of. It's like I understand, and I'm not, I'm 100% behind that in council and the whole thing, right?
Mm-hmm,
and I'm not going to over romanticize. Oh, we just went back to those days. Like, you know what? Okay, like there are some things that need to happen. Okay. But the thing is, I wish there was a little more of a recognition of is, there are people for whom this is a problem to have an ugly church. And it's not, and
totally
those
agree.
of us, we feel bad because it's like, oh, well, you're being picky. And it's like, no. There's something actually spiritually very important here going on.
Yes.
And it feels like we're purposely trying to put it away. So, I mean, there was, I will not name it because it is no longer in circulation, but there was a church in northern Michigan. I'm just going to say orange shag, baby. And
oh, yeah.
Not only orange shag carpet, you're not going to believe this, but on the floor, it would come up over the pews and down and up the walls.
No.
And it felt like you're trying to pray, and it's, it's the Mass, and it's, listen, it's the Mass, right?
Mm-hmm. Holy
but
sacrifice
it's like,
of the Mass.
You felt like it was a Mass being offered in, like, not the belly of a whale, but like the belly of a Muppet. You know what I mean? That's what you felt like. and it was just so. It was like someone was trying to distract you. Sorry. Anyway, that's
Amidst the liturgical dancers too.
So
with the guitar.
we came to Grand Rapids, and part of the reason we moved to the West Side is Sacred Heart is like, wow, this is a beautiful church.
Yeah, it is.
100%.
It's beautiful. I can
Yeah.
pray, I can pray here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
There's something about beauty in Catholicism. Because, I totally agree with you, Dave, that beauty aspect of it that, Catholicism has that Protestant churches just, they don't have. It's a rock concert. Like, I don't know what the churches you went to, but the ones I went to growing up, you're meant to be entertained. And I walked into, we went to a smaller Protestant church, but it's like sister church was a little bit further away, and we went there sometimes. And you walk in, it was literally an auditorium. It looked like an auditorium.
Yeah.
It's like, what are we here for?
Yeah.
And it had like stadium seating and stuff, and like this awesome speaker system, and it's like what's the sure, the music was awesome, fantastic. You felt on fire for Jesus and everything, but then it's like what's the point though? Like, is that the pinnacle? Is the rock concert, or is it
right? Well, that was
Jesus?
actually part of the story for me. I came to a little bit of a crisis of faith, right? Because I'd play in bands, and the way I'd put it is, okay, so Saturday night, I'd play in this band. And one of the things you do if you're introverted is I find stages comfortable places to be because I don't have to be with people. Do you know what I mean? Like being on stage. Like I enjoyed performing very much, but you don't have to be with people. You can be alone. And,
makes sense.
For sure.
Yep.
So Saturday night, and I knew how to perform, And then Sunday, I'd be in the worship band, and I found myself making the same moves. Do you know what I mean? And it was a real kind of crisis of faith for me because I'm like, well, what am I doing? Do you know what I mean? Like I can perform, and it's not as easy as saying secular or religious or anything like that because I do think something powerful is happening, say in a rock concert. And I'm certainly not going to say that the Spirit isn't moving in a particular worship service. I'm not qualified to say.
Right.
But it was also but I kind of knew what I was doing. I knew where my heart was. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it became hard to distinguish between Dave the worship leader and Dave the performer. Mm. Those guys got mixed up, man. And I was not comfortable with it. And this is not to say that that's the case for other people, but for me, it was certainly that was the case 100%.
Do you mean you felt like you're being a hypocrite?
No, it's
like
more
you're
it's
like
more
one
you said,
person
what,
being.
what are we doing here?
Oh,
okay.
What what's the point almost?
What is worship? What is that? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say it has nothing to do with our emotional selves. We're human persons,
right?
But what is it beyond that? And if it's nothing beyond that, well, heck, man, then go see U2 because they put on one hell of a show.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Or
Rush.
Or
especially Rush. I've had very moving experiences at U2 concerts and Rush concerts. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But how do I distinguish that? Does that mean it's not somehow truthful? Yeah, it probably is. I'm sure it's beautiful. But is that the same thing as worship? What is right worship?
Were you able to clearly make a distinction between what you're talking about, there's something missing, and then experiencing an authentic liturgical celebration of the holy sacrifice of the Mass?
Yeah.
Was there a point in your life where you recognized that, this is a definitive break between a natural and a supernatural? And liturgy
that's a good question.
is that supernatural connection, and there's nothing better than that here on earth.
Yeah, that's a good question, Father.
Did you experience that with your philosophy professor when he would take him and his wife would take you to Mass?
That was firmly in the suburban right.
What church was that?
It was
St. Francis?
That's one. But you have to also recommend in those days, anything like something liturgical, anything like traditional, anything that felt like it was rooted in history, right? Was itself
sure.
Whoa, this is wild, Mm-hmm. And I often wonder, maybe had I wandered into sort of a high Anglican church or an Orthodox
Or Episcopalian,
church, or Episcopalian. You know, I probably would have a similar sense, just some sort of rootedness.
Yeah.
But I will tell you I'll tell you one. I don't know if it's quite what you're referencing, but before my senior year, so this is right after I converted, one of these worship bands. So I had a couple buddies that I played in bands with, and they were worship leaders at this Wesleyan church. And they had, their church was planning this extended mission trip to Africa. And they were going to bring this worship band with them. And then a week and a half before they're supposed to leave, their bass player got really sick. And they said, hey man, you want to go to Africa for a few weeks and play bass and on tour? And I'm like, yeah, sure. Right? So I fast-tracked the passport and packed my gear up, and I knew a lot of the songs they were playing, and I was kind of a tag-along, but I was the Catholic, right? I said, well, I just got to make sure I get to Mass,
Oh, yeah.
And they're like, oh, yeah, we'll work it out. There's there's this Baptist seminary, which is kind of going to be the home base, and we're going to be going all over Malawi and Zambia and this sort of thing. But yeah, we'll figure it out. We'll make it work. So when I got there, the Baptists weren't keen to take me to Mass, But we were in a town called Blantyre, and there's a cathedral in Blantyre. And so, they were all going to go do their Sunday service, and they dropped me off on the bus on the way at this cathedral. So walking to this cathedral, two things happen. The first one is that I go in there and I sit down, okay? And these women I sit next to, man, they look at me. Who's this guy? Because I don't know if this is video and maybe it's audio. I am not what you would call an olive-skinned Mediterranean man. I am.
Really?
Believe it or not.
How would you describe your skin tone?
Alabaster, with shades of early melatonin deficiencies and lots of
Paints a very vivid picture.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
thank you.
So there I am, and they sit next to these women, and they look at me. These Malawian women, they look at me like, okay. I'm like, yeah, I'm white. And then, I'm kind of just looking around, and then these other women look behind me. There's a woman on the other side. They're looking at me. All these people, they're all looking at me. Oh, yeah, okay, I get it. Right? And then I'm feeling like, okay, this is what it means to be an outsider. At the time, though, what was remarkable is in this language I didn't understand, but I knew exactly what was happening.
Sure.
Right? And I had this sense of Catholic faith. And that was very, very powerful. And so I remember thinking, I don't understand a word, nothing in the liturgy, nothing in this the homily, nothing. But I know I felt at home. It's remarkable. I felt at home. Yeah. Right? So go up for the communion and feeling pretty good about this whole thing. Wow, I'm at home. These people were looking at me to think I'm out of place, but I really am at home. I really had the sense of feeling at home. And I take communion, and I turn around and go back to the pew, and then I see it. In Malawi, the women sit over here, and men sit over there.
There it is.
Not because I'm white, because I'm a dude.
Yeah.
And I was sitting with the women, and everyone was looking at me what's going on, Right? So all of a sudden, I'm an alien again, and I sat with the men, and I fell at home again. But I didn't realize it, but they were actually celebrating the 20th anniversary of the visit of John Paul II to their cathedral.
Oh,
and so they had this huge Eucharistic procession at the end of Mass. And
you said it was the cathedral?
Yeah.
Oh, so their bishop was there.
Yes.
Oh.
So there's this huge to-do. And there's this huge Eucharistic procession at the end. With
a lot of
all
people.
So many people, so many drums, so much singing, so much dancing.
Oh, in Africa?
Right?
Absolutely.
Oh my goodness. And it was just and I like to think I've got rhythm, but I do not have rhythm. And so here I am in this throng, this dancing throng of joy, leaving on Eucharistic procession. And we walk out, and here comes all my Wesleyan and Bassett buddies in the bus, and they drive into the middle of this thing, and they're like, what in the world is going on? just hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of people just dancing and singing, drums and the Eucharist. So anyway, to go back to your question, I don't know if there was a sense of like the natural and the supernatural, but there was very definitely a sense of the Catholicity, the universality, and here I am, this kid from Michigan, and I'm in Malawi, and I felt like completely at home. That was very strange. So yeah.
Hello, everyone. My name is Father Dominic Katiri with the Manly Catholic Podcast, and I'd like to take a moment with you just to talk about something that's dear to my heart. Harmel Academy of the Trades here in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Harmel Academy started in 2018, where I came on board. And now we're entering our 2024-2025 year with just close to 30 guys from all over the country. Harmel Academy of the Trades is a Catholic trade school dedicated towards building these men towards Jesus Christ with prayer, work, and study. It's a 1-year program and a 2-year program where we teach these men not only how to sit at the feet of the Master of Jesus Christ, who is the epitome of what it means to be a man and a worker, but they get to work in a variety of trades. They live together on campus, they work together on campus, they take humanities curriculums together. And if you're interested, please check out our website at harmelacademy.org and discover more about this wonderful academy. And may God bless you.
So you're a bass player?
I have.
Do you still play?
When my boys started getting to the place that we play, we sort of brought the instruments out, and I'm a lot slower than I used to be. That's for sure. Yeah, that's for sure.
Awesome.
But that's amazing. Okay, so you joined the think tank with Father Sirico in Grand Rapids.
Yep.
So what happened after that? How long were you there? What were you working on there?
So
what happened after?
Around about grad school, and as I was trying to think about teaching, one of the things that I got to know this fella who was at this agency in town, this ad agency in town, and they started. They had this idea for a school, and I suppose this is relevant. I consider this, but they had. It was this school. It was this Christian school. This idea they had for the school, and initially it was what they did is they just bring some guys in and sort of train them up and give them some space. So when I first moved to Grand Rapids and took that job, I also took it was called an artisan residence at this place called Compass Arts. Compass was started by a couple of ad guys from Chicago who came to Grand Rapids, and this was sort of the wing of their ad agency, where what they did is they provided like top-end creative advertising work for like nonprofits, okay? And they did a lot with the pro-life industry in the 90s, and they really kind of changed a lot of how that whole issue was dealt with publicly. And so what happened is my brother and I, we got to know these guys. We went through some of the training. They gave us an office, and we did some of this work on the side, some of this film work, and then after after I was done at Acton, I'd actually left Acton because they were going to sort of ramp up that school to something else. So I went over there to start a school, and it's become a habit, I suppose. And but
very good habit.
Well, I don't know. This one was. I won't go into it. It's a long story, but yeah. So I went off to do that for a while, and that did not go well. And so then I found myself, a few years later. Now by that time, I'd built up sort of a little book of business. I'd done some teaching on the side, and started. I'd written some screenplays that got sold, and so I made a little money that way, and did documentary work on the side, and a few commercials here and there, and and so sort of did this hybrid thing where I taught for a while, for quite a few years actually, and then had this sort of little second life as a screenwriter and a filmmaker, and did a few films and a few documentaries, and yeah, so I did that for a while. Yep.
Wow.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
What were some of your films, if you don't mind sharing?
Well, the stuff I wrote, I don't think any of the none of them actually got produced. Like, so I had a few that sold.
With some documentaries, right?
Well, some feature films, stuff that I wrote and sold. None of it got produced, but their checks cashed, so that's fine with me. And then some documentaries. The one that I think probably my favorite one is the one that kind of got maybe I guess the most people might bump into. You can still find it out there. It's a film called Desire of the Everlasting Hills.
Mm-hmm.
And that was about 10 years ago. Produced that, and that was
I remember watching that.
Yeah.
Very good.
So so that was good. We did that with some just wonderful, very holy people, and that was interesting. That was a film where the agency I worked with in those days, they were guys that also started in that same office, in the office next door. And so, we had been buddies for years, and so sort of did this project. And there were only 4 of us at the agency that we kept it hush-hush because it was a film. This is, 2012. And in those days, there wasn't as, you might say, open a conversation about human sexuality and the experience of homosexual desire and this sort of thing. And it was very volatile because we had a lot of clients that if they heard you were making a film about Catholicism and sexuality, well, you'd lose those clients. And we had a lot of Christian, who said, well, if they thought that you were making a film about, unless you see the film and know what it is,
right.
Like people are just going to assume it is whatever, and man, that'll
right.
kill your business. So we had to keep it kind of under wraps until it was done, because we knew that there was a really good story there, and we knew that the people that are featured in that were just unbelievable people, beautiful stories. But because they were at the same time people who were attracted to other people of their sex, and at the same time trying to live according to what the Catholic Church teaches and seeking holiness, like they were kind of on the outs with both communities.
Right.
So so that was a great project. That was we spent several months going all over the country and so
Good for you.
did that sort of work for a while.
So then, how did Harmel start? What was the idea behind it, and how did that get going?
So at the same in those years, Father Sirico was assigned to Sacred Heart, and because I had known him, and I was, I don't know how many parishioners he knew. I think it was a ton, but okay, so he knew us, and I sort of got voluntold that we were going to reconstitute the school board, and the school was failing, was bankrupt, and my wife and I had been there for 10 years or something at that point. I don't think we had once stepped in the school. It was just this whole other thing over there, 20 feet that way, and so got involved with sort of the relaunch of that school. Yes, school number 2. And that one went a little better. And but also got to know some folks in the parish in different ways that way. So about 2017 or so, we're doing a lot of this agency work. One of the guys from that parish said, hey, I want to talk to you. I know you're in advertising. Got this sort of idea. I want to see if you guys might help us, with some of the communication and design and assets and marketing strategy and that sort of stuff. And that was Brian Black, and he and Ryan Pohl, had this idea for this trade school, and it would be a Catholic trade school, but it would be sort of this integration of the trades and of sort of intellectual formation and spiritual formation. And it was just like, oh yeah, I totally get it. Like, I mean, it was, you get 2 sentences in, and I'm like, oh man, that is a great idea. Yes, it was just very clear. So so I got involved sort of in an advisory capacity on that side a little bit, and then and then in 2020 when Brian and Ryan were kind of pushing the ship into the water, I suppose they need a bass player. I don't know. I guess, I don't know.
Keep everyone in tune, Dave.
Check one. Tsitsi fly. So
We needed the orange shag carpet.
Orange shag.
Yeah, oh yeah.
That was the name of my worship band. No, it was Protestant. Yeah, I remember that from Dad. Told me orange. I want a green shag. He's like, Protestant. Orange shag it is.
All right.
Okay. I really hope someone names a band Orange Shag.
That'd be amazing. From this podcast.
It's another great idea.
Oh, great idea.
So what drew you to the idea of Harmel, though? So, like, why the trades, and what really, I guess, struck you that, like, wow, that's a great idea.
Well,
Let's do this.
When I was, it was a couple things. Like I said, I was kind of a bookish kid, right? I mean, I was I grew up working for my dad, and junior high and high school and college and grad school. I'd work on one of those machines all day, and but I was also kind of a bookish kid, and loved my dad very much. What a genius, but he's just a hard worker, and I thought I was more curious about things, and so I'm like, man, I don't want to do this, but as I got out into the world, and it was actually one of the things at the think tank, right? And I'm so thankful for my time there. And this is I've got to be careful. I don't want this to sound in any way like a criticism or anything like that. But I'd be learning all these wonderful things about philosophy and economics and the faith and the church's social teaching and all these wonderful things I was learning. But even at the time, I remember thinking, like, I don't think like anybody here is like bloody their knuckles on anything before. You know what I mean? And so I'm coming at it from like small town northern Michigan kid, machine shop. My dad was an entrepreneur, but he didn't look anything like these entrepreneurs. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
He was a businessman, but he didn't look anything like these businessmen. And I'm not throwing shade or saying one's right or wrong. I'm just saying, like, they spoke a very distinct idiom.
Two levels of a different approach, right? Kind of almost towards the same.
Well, I don't know if I'd even put it that way. I'd say, I suppose even though I didn't think myself particularly talented, or skilled. You see the world differently when your knuckles are bloody and you've got metal chips in your eye, and you know what I mean. You like there's just or when the work you're doing is not primarily abstract and in concepts or in spreadsheets, but is in steel, right? And when you
can smell it.
You can smell
Feel
it.
it.
You feel
Taste
it.
it.
And
touch it. Yeah.
One of Ben Patterson. So he has 3 sons, and 2 of them went to school with, and they're all blacksmiths out in California, and they do this super high end like stuff, gates and chandeliers, and I mean they're geniuses. And years ago, I was visiting him out there, Dan, the oldest, and he said, like, listen, I've got this. Actually, I did a film on Dan, and he said. He said something like, he says, when I'm working on a piece, right, of steel, he says, I have a complicated relationship with this piece, It may have burned me. It may have fallen on my foot, right? But ultimately, like, we're close. Me and that piece are close. And he derives all sorts of beautiful spiritual lessons from this. But there's something about dealing with the world in its physical proximity. You just see a different shade of things. It's not better or worse or anything like this. I'm not saying that, but when we talk about things like Catholic social teaching, we talk about economics. There's different points of emphasis. There's different facets of the prism that come alive from the point of view of a working guy, and I always felt that missing. So it was weird when I was in my dad's shop. I felt like, wow, there's a wonder here, but I don't have the language for it. And then when I did like the philosophical work, it's like, oh, I have a different language for this, but no one else seems to speak it. And then when Brian and Ryan came in and said, well, here's this school we want to build, this academy we want to build, I'm like, oh, well, there it is. That's the integration, and that's a voice, and that's a type of work that, man, I just didn't see anywhere else doing it.
Right.
And you know, it's interesting. I'm kind of sensitive too, because we've seen, even in the 5 years since I've been on staff here, we've seen a lot more attention paid to the skilled trades generally in culture, especially even in Catholic circles. But I'm very sensitive to I get kind of grumpy a little bit too, because yes, I want to applaud everyone's interest in it. I want to applaud. There's all sorts of new initiatives happening all over. They're doing awesome work. Everyone should be doing this. But I'm also grumpy because I'm not describing something like romantic, though. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's easy to romanticize what I'm saying, and it's not that, right? It's not, sort of leather aprons and bespoke, wood shops. It's dirty and it's hard and it stinks, But nonetheless, that really drew me. The idea that someone could be serious about this work that I knew, but also it could also be intellectually very serious. Not that it's not otherwise. You see, even there's a problem, right? But it's integrated. But all with an eye towards that there is an actual spirituality here. What John Paul calls a spirit. There is a spirituality of work.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
100%.
Amen.
So
just talk briefly about the name of the academy.
Yeah. So Ryan and Brian came across that near the beginning. I think they had a list of things. I can't remember, but some of them were, kind of the standard ideas you might have or whatever.
Yeah.
So the academy is named after a fellow named Leon Harmel. He was a 19th century French industrialist. He inherited his father's textile factories. He was a third order Franciscan. He was a widower. And one of the things. So we're in the middle of the Industrial Revolution, and there's something that would come to be known as the social question. And in short, it's when you have an entire generation of people that sort of moves from an agricultural-based culture to an industrial culture, from the country to the city. Like, for all of human history, you have certain traditions in a cultural fabric that it's all now flipped over, right? And now it's in the city, and you have all of these problems, that come about. And okay, what does this mean? What do we do with this? And everyone's trying their answer to it, and you've got your Adam Smiths and you got your Karl Marxes, and everyone's trying to figure it out, right? But in the meantime, you got all these people, and Harmel, to make a long story short, he decided that perhaps the Lord had put him in this position as a widower and as the heir of these factories, because he wanted the Lord perhaps wanted him to look after these people. And maybe his work, his company, his factories were for their good. So he was something of an innovator. He, for example, some of my workers one day will be too old to work. Maybe we should be putting money aside for them when they, retire or whatever. Retire. What was that, right? Okay, but retirement account. Oh, that's a good idea. Or these factories can be pretty unsafe. Like, maybe we should have some standards about, like, what safety looks like. He would build schools. He would build churches. He'd take his employees on pilgrimage. The spiritual and physical and cultural good of his people was what he felt. And I've said this before, this isn't his language, it's my own, but I think it's true to his spirit. It was his life as a business owner was an extension of his fatherhood. And in fact, his employees called him the good father.
Oh, wow.
And it wasn't like business and work and family and spirituality were separate. Like it was meant to flow from his fatherhood. So anyway, long story short, he came to the someone noticed him who was interested in these things, and also had a big, tall, white, pointy hat and sat on a chair in Rome. And Leo the 13th and Harmel kind of got to know each other, and in some way, it could be said that Leo the 13th wrote an encyclical called Rerum Novarum, in part because of what he saw men like Harmel doing. And
Wow.
he was a big fan of Harmel. He was known to say, Harmels must be multiplied. And I think probably what Brian and Ryan saw in that was not simply a theology of work or spirituality of work, but a theology of work, a lived spirituality of work that is integral. It's not like over there is our economic life, and over there is our spiritual life, and over there is our family life, but these are all of a piece. And to try to separate them falsely or artificially hurts them all. So, so Harmel Academy of the Trades.
And that's what we're bringing into Harmel.
We're sure trying, eh?
Yeah.
So, trying to.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much for tuning in to another episode of The Manly Catholic. If you have not already done so, please hit that subscribe button wherever you get your podcasts to make sure you don't miss a single episode. It will also help grow the show and reach as many men as possible. We truly think this podcast can change families and help men to change the world. Thank you again so much for tuning in, and God bless you.